Created by H.P. Lovecraft, Eldritch horror has served as an inspiration behind many tales of horror and mystery in the modern world. Moreover, he laid the foundation for conjuring all kinds of strange, disturbing beasts that wandered the earth and the universe at large, ranging from the evasive Cthulhu to other Eldritch Abominations such as Azathoth and Yog-Sothoth. While some of these beasts are more popular than others, we come to you with a curation of the top 10 Eldritch Abominations with the potential to give Cthulhu some tough competition. Before we get into this exploration, we do have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to the channel. It's a small click for you, but for us, it means everything. Thank you. Let's begin. Azathoth. To begin with, we have Azathoth, who is also known as the Cold One or the Blind Idiot God. Identified as one of the outer gods, this omnipotent entity has several forms and is perceived differently by all his victims. He first appeared in H.P. Lovecraft's Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath, and later appeared in the form of a bestial, mouthless face with sinking eyes and shiny black hair in The Insects from Shagai. In this form, Azathoth terrorized Ronald Shea when he walked into a temple that worshipped him before his exile, and the sight of him was just so mortifying that Shea struggled to process it. Most mortals were incapable of tolerating even a quick glimpse of this entity and would turn to insanity and walk a path of complete destruction after coming face to face with him. This beast was also capable of reproducing asexually through the process of fission, which meant that he could never be eradicated, and he had some legacy in the form of his children, such as Saxicluth. While he was a malevolent presence in the Necronomicon, August Derleth's rendition of the book described him as a leader of the cosmic upheaval and even likened him to Lucifer in the Bible. He further wrote about his comeback and eventual rise to power, even though he currently resided in a realm of chaos outside the confines of space and the universe. Nyarlathotep. Also known as the Crawling Chaos, Nyarlathotep was introduced as Azathoth's spawn, who also acted as the soul and messenger of the outer gods. Even though he's one of the biggest deities in Cthulhu mythos, he differs from all the other entities in the sense that he is an active deity who often blends in with humanity and walks the earth, while the other gods are either in deep sleep or have been exiled to the stars. He appears in the form of a tall, lanky man, but it is said that he has over 1,000 forms, some of which are way more gnarly and disturbing than others. Nyarlathotep also assumes the responsibility of running several cults to honor the other outer gods in their absence, and he is known for his cunning demeanor, as he often resorts to deception and manipulation to get what he wants through these followers. He was known for enforcing the will of the outer gods as their messenger, and he also had the power to control the Dreamlands, the gods of Earth, the Moon Beasts, and the Shantaks. While he didn't have the highest opinion of Azathoth, Nyarlathotep was bound to follow his wishes in a second, but he once struck him in the head out of sheer contempt. According to him, his most important job was to spread madness and chaos across the world, and it was prophesied that he might just end up destroying humanity in this endeavor. While he first appeared on Earth before the destruction of Atlantis, he lingered around for too long and promised immortality to his followers. He then embarked on a journey across the planet and garnered a bigger following through his dark magic rituals before influencing Egyptian priesthood. Under his reign, Egypt transformed into a slaughterhouse as the ruling cult of Neferin-Ka indulged in necromancy to please Nyarlathotep. Over time, he also established other cults, such as the Brotherhood of the Black Pharaoh, the Cult of the Bloody Tongue, and the Children of the Sphinx, and it was prophesied that he would eventually bring about nuclear Armageddon. Shub-Niggurath. Also known as the Black Goat of the Woods with 1,000 Young, Shub-Niggurath first appeared in Lovecraft's revision story, The Last Test. While her name is often heard in the middle of incantations or ritualistic sacrifices, she keeps a laid-back profile as a perverse fertility deity with an allegedly cloud-like appearance. It is said that she appears in the form of a blob with black tentacles, a slimy mouth, and spindly goat legs, and her body often produces tiny monstrosities that either merge with her body mass or latch on to some other monster. She is said to be the wife of the not-to-be-named one and Yog-Sothoth, and she even had twins named Nub and Yeb with him. Eventually, Tiog of Kana studied Shub-Niggurath and concluded that she was a benevolent entity who had helped humanity in their fight against Ghatanothoa's tyranny. In the writings of August Derleth, Shub-Niggurath is introduced as one of the Great Old Ones, and she is seemingly the most worshipped deity in the entire mythos. She was worshipped by the Hyperboreans, Movians, non-human species such as the fungi from Yugoth, the Kenyanians, and the Doles and Nug-Soth. Zamakona I Nunez once stated that Shub-Niggurath was a sophisticated version of Astartes, and that her cult practices were quite shocking. She could also be summoned to the woods on a new moon night by using certain tools, and it was said that she resided at the court of Azathoth in the center of the universe the rest of the time. Shub-Niggurath's milk had magical properties that mutated anyone who consumed it, and she also had an army of followers known as the Dark Young of Shub-Niggurath. These creatures were tiny black monsters made of rope-like tentacles and stumpy legs, and they typically presided over any cult ceremonies or rituals. Yog-Sothoth. Born of the nameless mist, Yog-Sothoth was an all-encompassing outer god who was also known as the Beyond One or the All-in-One. Like most of his peers, Yog-Sothoth had many appearances, but his most common form remains a mass of glowing orbs with eyes and tendrils. It is said that he can perceive everything going on in the universe, and no secret across space or time could ever be hidden from him. He was also Cthulhu and Hastur's progenitor, in addition to being Vormiz's ancestor and Wilbur Whateley's father. Yog-Sothoth was first mentioned in the Lovecraft story, The Case of Charles Dexter Ward, but he soon established himself as one of the most recurring characters in the mythos. He appeared in stories such as the Dunwich Horror, where he fathered twins with a human being, and even stumbled upon Randolph Carter in a story titled Through the Gates of the Silver Key. He was quite intensely worshipped by humans who often called upon him to help them perform occult deeds. In one such ritual, Yog-Sothoth used some form of essential salts from a dead person's body to revive him, and he later made an appearance in the town of Dunwich, where he was tasked with impregnating a woman from the Whateley family. While her husband called for Yog-Sothoth's help and even stood on a hill surrounded by a pattern of stones, this outer god made his presence known and even performed the deed that led to the birth of two partially human offspring. Hastur. Hastur the Unspeakable was introduced as a deity in Lovecraft's The Whisperer in the Darkness, but he has other origins in Ambrose Bierce's works, wherein he's known as the God of Shepherds. He has also appeared in Robert W. Chambers' short stories, such as The Yellow Sign or The Repairer or Reputations, and he's described as a great old one. In the Cthulhu mythos, Hastur is Yog-Sothoth's offspring and Cthulhu's half-brother, and he has many different avatars. In one such avatar, he's a shriveled flying monster with tentacles and razor-sharp talons that could pierce through a human skull, while in other versions he has an amorphous body. The Carcosa Foundation was known for worshipping him, and he's been described as a benevolent entity across several mythos written by Ambrose Bierce and August Derleth. These descriptions served as the inspiration behind Robert W. Chambers' works, which eventually inspired H.P. Lovecraft to put forward his own twist on this character. However, Lovecraft painted him as quite an ambiguous personality in his works, and it's unknown if he's perceived as a person, object, place, or deity. Later, Hastur was introduced as the Great Old One that inspired the Deus Machina Lord Bayaki in the Demonbane series, wherein Hastur was enemies with other deities such as Othum or Cthulhu. Ubbo-Sathla. Also known as the Unbegotten Source and the Demiurge, Ubbo-Sathla was a fictional monster created by Ashton Smith for his Cthulhu mythos-inspired story. Titled after Ubbo-Sathla, this story explored a primordial entity that resided in the depths of the earth and even identified him as the source and the unbegotten beginning. According to this story, Ubbo-Sathla was the one to establish the Great Old Ones who rebelled against the elder gods of Betelgeuse, while other works have stated that he was Azathoth's twin sibling. In some stories, Ubbo-Sathla has fathered entities such as Abhoth, Nyarlathotep, Zu-Shakon, and Beatus, and he typically appeared in the form of a huge protoplasmic mass that rested in a grotto underneath the frozen earth. It was said that all kinds of single-celled organisms originated from his body and that he guarded a bunch of stone tablets that contained all the knowledge of the universe and the elder gods. Ubbo-Sathla apparently spawned the prototypes of all living beings on Earth, but the irony was that any lifeform that came in touch with his pseudopods was doomed to be devoid of life forever. While it is assumed that Ubbo-Sathla will reabsorb all living beings in the future, he currently dwells in Yaqua or Mount Vormithadreth, where he has seemingly spawned another deity just like himself. Tulzscha, also known as the Green Flame, Tulzscha was first introduced in Lovecraft's short story, The Festival. While it was an unnamed being at first, it was retroactively named Tulzscha in the Chaosium's Malleus Monstrorum manual supplement in a role-playing game. Its origins are quite evasive, but we do know that it appears in the form of a blazing green ball alongside other lesser outer gods in the court of Azathoth. Even though it exists in a world full of men, Tulzscha has always manifested in a gaseous form as its fumes penetrate the planet's core and eventually erupt in a pillar of flames cascading to the surface. Igolonak. Also known as the Defiler or the God of Depravity and Perversion, Igolonak first appeared in Ramsey Campbell's short story Cold Print. He's classified as a great old one, and he is known for indulging in all kinds of depravity and perversion. However, his perversions aren't quite on the same level as those of human beings, and his nefarious acts involve mass murder, inducing insanity, genocide, and the most unimaginable forms of torture. He is seemingly one of the most feared entities out there, and even the Cthulhu cult held him in contempt. It was said that Egolanak took great interest in humanity and often exhibited impressive levels of human understanding, and he typically lived behind a brick wall in an unidentified area as he bade his time. Eventually, he was determined to break free from this prison and trap, abuse, and even rape everyone in his path the second he tasted freedom. In his mission to destroy the world, Egolanak started creating a cult of people who indulged in forbidden literature and manipulated them into reading the Revelation of Glaki. As they read all about him in this story, they would unintentionally summon him, and he would then give them a chance to become his priest. When most of his victims refused to do so, Egolanak declared that he had no option but to devour them, and he fed on countless victims in an attempt to relinquish his hunger. Furthermore, he had the ability to possess his hosts, and he would then manifest in the form of an obese man with no head or neck and 2 mouths on the palms of his hands. In cold print, Egolanak even went so far as to seize control over a bookstore after murdering the owner and wearing his skin, but not before trying to convince Mr. Strutt to become his priest. Tsathoggua. Created by Clark Ashton Smith for his Hyperborean cycle, Tsathoggua, or the Sleeper of Nakai, was an old one who seemingly originated in outer space. Over time, he settled in Nakai, even though he remained evasive for the most part and didn't even appear physically in Lovecraft's stories. However, he was described as a pot-bellied creature with the head of a giant toad, bulging eyes, and a body covered in short fur. He was known as quite the lazy deity, and he spent the majority of his time sleeping in his chambers without much care for the outside world. If anyone dared to venture too close to him, Tsathoggua immediately jerked awake from his slumber and ended up eating them as punishment for waking him up. He only spared them if they had a sacrifice to offer, in which case he would feed on this sacrifice before going back to hibernation. The version of Tsathoggua in Lovecraft stories differs greatly from the one in Smith's, but there are some similarities, such as the creature's ability to shapeshift into other forms by molding its body mass. He was also capable of communicating with human beings, and he sometimes talked to his cultists to reward them with gifts such as devices that could serve as a key to alternate dimensions. While it is unknown if he communicated with them through telepathy or actual words, he sometimes made deep rumbling sounds that took the shape of syllables and words. In ancient times, Tsathoggua lived on Yuggoth along with his parents in the underground caves that helped them stay away from the spotlight, but he eventually moved to Psychronosh and Earth before settling down in the underground lands of Nakai to avoid detection. He is also known as the patron god of furry anthropoidal creatures known as Vormes, in addition to being worshipped by the humans in Hyperborea. Ghatanothoa. First introduced in Lovecraft's story, Out of the Aeons, Ghatanothoa, or the Dark God, was a gigantic, hideous monster who first arrived on Earth during prehistoric times. While Ghatanothoa initially lived on Yuggoth, aliens brought him to Earth and even named him the Hellish God, as it was said that anyone who gazed directly at him turned into a living mummy out of sheer shock. When he first arrived on Earth, Ghatanothoa was sealed in a gigantic fortress on top of the Yadith-Go Mountains in Kana, where human beings eventually discovered and worshipped him. Since humans were terrified of him, they offered sacrifices to ensure that he stayed within his crypt, especially after they observed the terrorizing impact that he had on his victims. Anyone who was unfortunate enough to witness him in all of his glory found themselves permanently immobilized as their skin turned to leather, and they remained alive in a shell of their former body. Over time, he garnered quite a cult-like following, even though they faced great opposition from the priests of Shub-Niggurath. While Lovecraft first introduced this creature, he was later discovered in the writings of many other authors, such as Lynn Carter, who introduced him as a great old one in The Thing in the Pit. According to Carter, Ghatanothoa was the firstborn of Cthulhu, and he had come to life by Idea on the planet of Zoth. He was also a part of Colin Wilson's Cthulhu lore, and he eventually appeared in lots of other popular media, including a Japanese TV series, Ultraman Tiga. Marvelous verdict! And with that, we've explored some of the most terrorizing entities in the history of fantasy and pop culture. While Lovecraft's imagination gave birth to these Eldritch Abominations, they soon became the pinnacle of cosmic horror and went on to inspire all kinds of horror creatures in media. From the mighty Azathoth to Egolanak and Ghatanothoa, a mere whisper of their names is enough to send a shiver down someone's spine. We hope you enjoyed exploring them with us, and we'd love to hear all about your favorite Eldritch gods. in the comments down below. Are you a Cthulhu guy, or are you a little bit more discerning? Let us know, and maybe we'll make an entire video on your favorite eldritch being. That's all, but if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Otherwise, thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.